Hello everyone, thanks for tuning into another episode of Ghost Story Café. Through this podcast series, I'm always trying to explore some different topics surrounding the supernatural and mostly just hoping to learn a little bit more through this experience. For today's episode, I'm going to be connecting with my grandmother Rose, and she's going to be sharing some of her ghost stories with me. With my grandmother growing up, we would watch all kinds of different ghost stories together, paranormal investigation shows like Ghost Adventures and Paranormal Witness and Dead Files. So my grandmother shares my love of the paranormal, and I'm very excited to be hearing from her today and also hearing some more about some of her own experiences with the supernatural. We're recording. You can start wherever you want to, talking about your ghost story, Nanny.
All right, so this happened quite a few years ago now. I had this cat, and you might remember him. His name was Teddy.
Yep, I remember Teddy.
And he slept with me and Grampy. And one night we were sleeping, and I felt him moving around a little bit. I woke up, and I saw him there, so I put my hand up to pet him. Mm-hmm. And when I put my hand up to pet him, he ducked, which he never does. And I thought, well, that's strange. And I said, Teddy, what are you doing? So I put my hand out again, and I start petting him. Same thing. He started ducking. So, and he kept looking out in the hallway from our bedroom.
Yeah, that's creepy.
So I tapped Grampy on the shoulder, and he said, what? And I said, somebody might have got in the house. I'm not sure. I said, the cat's acting really funny. He said, what do you mean? I said, well, one time I go to pet him, he's looking out the bedroom door, but he's ducking his head, like doesn't want me to touch him, like he saw something or he sees something. So Grampy says, okay, well, we better go check and see what's going on. And so we get up, and I put a little bit of humor into it too, because Grampy's like, but you walk ahead of me. And I'm like, no. I said, no, you go first. So out the room we go, and we're walking down the hall, and I looked back, and Teddy's still on the bed, and he's watching. So we go all downstairs, we looked all the way around the couches and chairs in the laundry room. We went out into the storage room. We looked behind the furnace where the boiler is and where all the pumps are and everything. We crawled in there, and there was nothing in there. And anything that anybody could have crawled into, we looked into. Mm-hmm. We come back upstairs, checked all the doors, the windows, everything, and there was nothing out of kilter. Everything was fine. Even looked outside. No one's roaming around. We come back to the bedroom, and Teddy's still on the bed. Never got off the bed to follow us or nothing, just still on the bed looking out the door. So Grampy goes back to bed and puts the blankets over his head and goes back to sleep, and I'm laying there the rest of the night, and I said, I'm not closing my eyes because I don't know what that cat saw, but that cat did not come out of that room and kept looking out that door. So in my mind, I'm thinking, because, I believe I've not seen a spirit, but I believe there could be spirits. Mm-hmm. So I believe where cats and dogs and other animals are intuitive to this, I believe that cat saw a spirit.
Yeah.
And I always remember that. And that happened while the cat passed away 10 years ago now, so it was quite a few years ago that it happened. Jeez. And that's one of the stories that I will never forget, because it was so real that I couldn't even go back to sleep. I was laying awake staring out the bedroom door the rest of the night.
That's really strange. Like, was that the only time that Teddy ever did that, Nanny, or did he ever do that again?
No. That's the only time he's ever done it. And I also have, I took pictures, and the cats that I have now, their toys are out on the living room floor. And I've taken quite a few pictures of it after it's happened. I've never seen these toys move or anything. Mm-hmm. But I've come out in the morning, and the toys, there could be 10 of them, and they'd be all lined up in a straight row.
Yeah, I know. You've shown me.
Yes, and I think I've sent pictures to you to show you that.
Yeah.
Doesn't happen. For a while it was happening often, mm-hmm. and then it sort of slackened off a bit, and it wasn't happening for like maybe a couple of weeks or so. But I noticed, maybe a couple of days ago, that the toys were lined up again.
Really?
One time. So I always think it, it's probably my niece, and maybe my mom, and a few others that have gone before that are, like just letting us know that they're there, just joking around and teasing. Because I always say, "Good job, guys," And what else do I remember?
The one that I was thinking, Nanny, I remember one time you told me that you were watching, it must have been like Ghost Adventures or one of those shows or something, and they said to try and say something out loud, like to try to like tell the spirits or like to see if there was anything in your house. And
yeah.
I remembered you told me a story about that. Do you know which one I mean?
I can't think of it right offhand. I always told your mom when she was at work and she had experiences there. I always say to her, ask who it is and what they want. Because I said you've been there all these years and nothing's ever hurt you. So, just see what they want. If anybody will answer you.
Yeah.
Right offhand, I can't think of that.
I feel like it had something to do with a lock or something. Like you heard something fall upstairs.
No, I can't remember.
No,
right
that's
now.
okay.
But I remember when we first came to the house, unless it's this story, Grampy went out to visit one of his friends, and I was alone in the house, and I was downstairs. And it sounded like somebody walked right across the floor, like real footsteps. I mean, seriously, I thought, did you leave that door unlocked? People are walking around up here. So I snuck up the stairs, and there was a box cutter on the edge of where the railing is, and I picked it up, and I thought, oh, my God, I got to find out what's going on here.
Oh, my God.
So I crawled up the other set of stairs, and I peeked around, and I saw the cat laying on the couch, and I thought, well, no, if the cat's not up moving around, it can't be anybody up here.
Mm-hmm.
So I came up, and I walked down the hall. Someone was going to jump out at me, and I said, no, I'm going to carry this in my hand just in case, but there was nothing. There was nobody, but it ever sounded so real. And one time when we had a mobile home years ago with Gigi, we had a cat, and he was at work, and we were way off the main road, and I was watching TV, and a light was going off and on in the spare bedroom.
Oh.
It was like, okay, what is that? And it must have went off and on 20 times. I was thinking, I could run out the door. But there's a part of me that always says, I gotta know. I gotta know.
You're braver than me.
I went down that hall, and I got to that room. I almost passed out, but I went in. I looked in there, and there was an alcove built in the wall, and there was a night table in there, and there was a light switch on the side of the wall, and the cat was sitting up there flipping the light switch off and on. And then that same, because it was a mobile home, that same mobile home, Gigi and I were acting out by the front door, and he was getting ready to go to work. And we were on a back road. There was nobody else there.
Yeah.
And not houses had been built up there or anything. There was one other mobile home way up the road further, but there was nobody around. And we were right by the door. We were acting out, and all of a sudden we heard knocking on the door. And we jumped, right? And he opened the door really quick to see who it was, and there was no one there. And I remember I got all upset, and I said, you can't go to work. You can't go to work. Can't leave me here. I said, something's going to happen. I said, because I had remember hearing something about knocking and stuff like that, like that it wasn't good if you heard knocking on the door or something, nobody was there. I used to hear stories. It was so real. I'll swear on a Bible, I heard that knocking, and so did he, as loud as could be.
Wow.
And he opened that door immediately, and there was no one there.
Gosh, I wonder what it could have been.
We were right by the door.
Oh.
And the other one that happened to Grampy was, and it happened twice to him, I went to bed one night, and he said, did you blow out a candle? And I said, no, I didn't have any on. And he said, I smell like sulfur, like a burnt match. And I said, no, I didn't. So I'm crawling into bed. He's jumping out of bed because he's terrified that I've been a fire, right? So he's running through the house. He's running through the house looking around, and he goes downstairs and checking everywhere, the panel and everything downstairs, down in the storage room, and came back up, and he said, it's weird. He said it only lasted a few seconds, and it was gone as quick as it came, but it smelled just like when you blow a match out.
Really?
So I said to him, I said, being brought up Catholic as I was, we weren't really taught, like, about the Holy Spirit or the presence of spirits or anything. Like, we didn't know anything. We just said our prayers and went to church and did our thing. But as I got older, I went into what they call a Life in the Spirit seminar one time, and it was just like I think it was like a weekend retreat type thing, and they were talking about, there was a priest there and some other people, and they were talking about different things you shouldn't get involved with, like the Ouija board and things like that, and different scents and things like that. And I always remembered that sulfur smell was supposed to be the sign of evil or a sign of the devil or something. So, and Grampy being Anglican, he didn't know, like, he wasn't brought up, like, really in the church or didn't know much, but I just said a prayer to St. Michael to him, and now there's a rosary hanging off each one of my beds. I've done that over the years ago. I always did that, you know. And the one I had was, your mother was only 2 years old, maybe. And I was in a flat in an old house that my grandfather owned. And I was living up in a flat upstairs over Mom and Dad at the time. And I was sleeping in this small little bedrooms. Bedrooms were small in those old places. Only enough room to put your feet. And I was sleeping, and it was like somebody put a bouquet of roses in my face. It woke me right up. And it just lasted for like 3 or 4 seconds.
Wow.
It was so strong and so real. I'll never forget it. This is before I knew anything about prayer meetings or ghost stories or you know, spirits or presence of, you know, of anybody or anything.
Yeah.
Come to find out, when you smell the roses, it's supposed to be the sign of the Blessed Virgin Mary.
Wow.
So that always stayed with me.
My gosh.
So those kind of things, yeah. And and Grampy had that one other time, that smell of the sulfur. It was daytime, and he came up the stairs, and he was at the top of the stairs, and he panicked. He smelled it, and he panicked, and you know. And so anyway, like you said, it only lasted a couple of seconds, and it was gone.
Wow.
So that was a few years ago. He hasn't had it since. So, you know.
Well, maybe that's for the best.
I don't know, boy. I'll tell you.
I wouldn't mind having the smell of the smell of the roses. Wouldn't be too bad, but the smell of the sulfur, I don't think I'd want to.
Yeah, and see, I wouldn't, if I hadn't gone to that Life and Spirit seminar, I wouldn't have known about that. But they say that's a sign of evil, so I don't want any evil in my house. So of course I pray. I always pray every day anyway to myself, like, you know, when I get in the car or you know, I always pray, you know, for protection over all of us and our home and, you know, vehicles and stuff and the roads we travel. You know, you have to kind of believe in something. Like, I think a lot of it's lost now. And so, yeah, I do believe that there's spirits. I do believe in angels. I believe that their presence can be there, especially when we need them. And I think angels are more apt to be with you if you call on them. I think they're there waiting for you to ask for help. So, I mean, I do believe. And a lot of people might say, well, I don't believe because all this bad stuff that's going on, God wouldn't allow that and all this stuff. Well, we don't know the answer why things happen. And selfishness and all these material things are just killing all of us, you know. And I think that's the bottom line.
Yeah.
That we're supposed to go back to the basics and you know, be thankful and be happy with what we have, and you know.
I agree with you, Nanny.
So yeah, you know, but not everybody's on the same page. So when people are not on the same page, that's why you've got all that confusion and, hatefulness and people being sad and depression and all this stuff that's going on.
Mm-hmm.
Because of all of that, because people can't go out and look at the stars, and they don't want to walk in the falling snow, and they don't want to touch the trees, and
Yeah.
that's my philosophy. That's real life,
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, and look at people for who they are, and what they are, and not look at what you have, and and what you're going to get.
We should get Grampy on here to tell ghost stories.
He doesn't believe in it.
I know.
You know why he doesn't believe in it? Because he's afraid. People say that because they're afraid.
Yeah.
They don't want to encounter anything like that.
I wonder if smelling that sulfur ever made him second guess that, though. I wonder.
He held my hand when I prayed. St. Michael's that time.
He must have been worried.
He was scared.
I know, I would be.
He told me he was. It scared him.
Yep.
So,
Well, especially when you're not knowing, where is this coming from? And it was right in the middle of the night.
What is it? And I shouldn't have teased. I did tease him after. I said, I don't smell it. I've never smelled it. So I said, I always heard it was a sign of the devil. I said, the roses were the sign of the Blessed Virgin. So I'd rather smell the roses, but that's okay. I said, I'll say a prayer with you, So he said, okay.
Didn't you say, too, before, Nanny, that you guys also have smelled cigarette smoke in the house?
No, Darlene.
That was on Darlene. Oh.
Yeah, she's got a bunch of stuff she can tell you.
Yeah, I'll have to
get a hold of her because she'll do it with you.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll definitely.
Call her.
I'll contact Aunt Darlene and see if she wants to share some of her stories too.
She will. Oh gosh, yeah. There was so many stories growing up too and stuff. And I remember my brother. When we were growing up, I was the oldest, so I shared a bedroom with one or two of my sisters. I can't remember that part. And then that bedroom would go in between that bedroom and the living room. There was a little room, we used to call it. Mm-hmm. And my two brothers slept in there, but there was only one brother there at the time. Now, I'm wondering if my older brother, Rick, might have been in the Navy at the time. So I heard my younger brother, Gary, talking to somebody, and Mom came down the hall and came in the bedroom, and she says, is that your brother? Is that Rick? Is that Gary talking? And I said, yeah, he's talking away to somebody. So she opened the door, and she went in. She said, who are you talking to? He says, that lady that was there. And she's, what lady? He said, well, there's an older lady sitting on the other bed. And she says, well, there's no one there. She says, go back to sleep or something like that. I always remembered that.
That's
and I used
strange.
to think, I wonder if that's my grandmother, my mother's mother, watching over him,
It's possible. You never know.
She was a sweet, sweet lady, And, it makes you wonder, but oh my goodness, oh no, Darlene can tell you a lot of stories. A lot of things that happened in that house and the house we were in before. Mm-hmm. When we were growing up and stuff. Mom saw an outline at the foot of her bed, a white outline at the foot of her bed, and it went out the window.
Really?
Yeah. Yep.
I wonder how she felt at the time. Did she say she felt afraid, or how it made her feel?
I don't know. Darlene might remember. Darlene might remember that. I just remember the story. I remember that happening.
Was that when you guys were growing up?
I think I was already married, maybe out of the house when it happened. I'm not really sure. Darlene might remember when it happened. But I know there was a time, one time, Mom was in the house they live on now, where Darlene is. And Mom heard the door shut downstairs, and she heard footsteps come up the steps, and she thought it was Darlene coming home for lunch.
Mm-hmm.
And then she didn't hear her say anything. She said, Darlene, she said, is that you? And she never answered. So she come to the top of the stairs. She said, Darlene, are you down there? No one answered, so she went down. She checked. Door was shut. And I can still remember her telling me, she said, that door shut and someone walked up those stairs. They heard the stair thing many times.
Someone was coming to pay him a visit.
Yeah, and Dad heard there was a door on the foot of the stairs, too. And Dad was sitting in his chair one time, and the door shut. There was no windows open or nothing. Door shut. And he thought that someone came in, too, but no, door just shut. They have a lot of stories that happened to them.
I wonder what it was about that house. Like maybe somebody that lived there before?
Well, it happened in the house before that, too, before they bought that house.
Jay. So this was the one, like...
I think they brought it with them, whoever, you know.
So some of those things happened at the house uptown in St. John, Nanny? Like...
Oh, yeah, I remember all those things that happened to you guys, too.
Yeah.
The one on Mecklenburg where the doorbell would ring, your mother was nobody there, and there's no kids or anything, so...
Yeah, she said that happened quite a bit.
Some of it can be explained. I mean, sometimes they'll say, oh, well, you know, like, the weather can influence things. I don't know about that, but I suppose it could, you know.
Well, I think that on one occasion, Mom actually mentioned that to the landlord and said that that was happening. That the doorbell was ringing a lot, and like she would go out to check to see, and there was nobody there, and they did check to make sure there was nothing wrong with the doorbell and everything looked fine. And I remember Renee, the landlord, had said, oh, like it must be my mom coming and ringing the doorbell. Her mom had recently passed away before we moved in there. So I remember that was kind of had freaked Mom out a little bit. Freaked all of us out a little bit at the time. So,
but you know, nothing's ever hurt anybody over the years that we've gone through all these things. So I think it's just, I don't know, I think, you know, like, it's hard to understand all these mysteries of life and death and stuff like that. Stuff, you know, we won't know until our time comes probably. But sometimes I wonder if some stay behind for whatever reason. Maybe they feel like they haven't gone, or they feel they got some things they want to do, or, you know.
Yeah, it really makes you wonder.
Because remember when you had that tap on the shoulder that time, we saw you turn around and look when you were at your graduation.
Yeah.
Nobody touched you.
Yeah, that is really, that's strange. I still think about that all the time. And the funny thing is, it's never happened to me again since.
No, and I still think it was almost like Mom being up there tapping on the shoulder saying, good job. Because Mom was like that. She always was so proud of you, right? And
that's what I like to believe.
Yeah, it could have been Mom tapping you on the shoulder, or Dad, and saying, you know, good job.
Yeah.
So we saw you turn around. Nobody was touching you or anywhere near you, so I don't know.
It really felt like somebody touched me on the shoulder. Like they were trying to get my attention. Yeah. And it felt no different than if you came up behind me and tapped me on the shoulder. Like that's really what it felt like, and it felt so real.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I'll definitely never forget about that time. Yeah. That was the second time that happened
over
to me.
the years. Once in a while I'll hear like, Mom, you know, and I'm like, you know, you're looking, you know, someone call me, and then you think something wrong with one of the kids or something. You hear Mom like really loud, like, you know.
Oh, Nanny, you're freaking me out, because I remember.
I'll think of more.
It's freaking me out that you're saying that happened to you at your house, because I remember one night I was sleeping over at your place when I was in high school. I was probably about 16 or 17, and my heart's pounding as I'm thinking about it. But I remember I woke up in the middle of the night because I thought I heard somebody yell Meg.
Yeah, and I've heard Mom.
Yeah, it sounded like Meg, and it woke me up out of my sleep. And I was like, man, like that sounded so real. Like I swear that somebody just called out my name.
It was right in another room, but it was there. Like, you know, it was like, and I knew it was by myself. So I was like, what the heck?
Yeah.
What's that all about, you know?
Yeah.
And then you always think, okay, is Heather all right? Or, you know, so she called, see if she's okay or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because sometimes you wonder if the minds, like, you know, if something was wrong and you were crying out for your mom or something, if you connect, you know what I mean? I always wondered about that.
Yeah.
There's a connection between, like, they say twins have that sometimes or something, or like if you were hurt or sick or something and you said, I want my mom, and if something crosses over our realm, and your mother's intuition picks that up. You know, I always wondered about that, you know, if that can
People
happen.
have said that they've had experiences like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, like they've had a dream or like a sense that something happened, and then
Darlene
sure enough, they
and
get
Aunt Norma.
news.
Yeah, Darlene and Aunt Norma. I had a weird experience not too long ago. It was a few weeks ago. And you dream. Sometimes you remember, sometimes you don't, right? It's a dream. You know the difference.
Yeah.
But I had this experience, and I think I was asleep, but it was like I wasn't. And it was like Darlene and I were face to face, and we were talking about this woman that we knew, and then I'll call it a dream because I don't know what else it was, said that she had died. It wasn't a family member, but it was a woman we knew, and we were like face to face, and Darlene might have said to me, or I might have said to her, I can't remember, that so-and-so died, and that was it.
Wow. Did you
so
find
real.
out from
It was
her
so,
if
like,
that
and
was
there was
true?
a name, but I can't remember the name now, but there was a name at the time,
Wow.
and we both knew the name, and we knew the woman.
Yeah, that is strange, Nanny.
Darlene's had weird things to happen to her like that. She's got that, she gets some kind of a message or something, like in Aunt Norma was like that. It runs in our family on Dad's side, your grandfather's side.
Yeah,
Great-grandfather's
I'd
side.
love to hear more about some of that stuff. I'll have to get a hold of Aunt Darlene.
Darlene will fill you in a whole bunch of them. You just get a hold of her.
Okay.
And she will tell you all kinds of stuff like that happened.
I'll never forget the time that you and I were sitting together in your living room and the stereo in your bathroom turned
that
on.
little radio in the shower
Yes.
came on.
That was really especially freaky
It didn't come
because...
on all evening, all day. It just came on then.
Yeah. And even more
I had
so,
to shut it off.
the fact, too, that you really had to press in on that button to turn it on and off.
Yeah.
That was what really got
Push
me.
button.
Yeah.
Tom said, oh, well, maybe it just wasn't shut all the way off. If that was the case, it would have been playing.
Yeah. Yeah.
No.
That
I had to
one.
really push on it, shut it off.
Yeah. I remember too, also, I think you told me this story once. I think you were saying that one time you thought you saw somebody like going into the woods by the house. Do you remember that?
Yes, I do remember that now.
And that story always freaked me out when you told me that.
Yeah, and, but it wasn't like a person, it was like, it just went into the trees or something, like, was gone. Like, it was a younger guy. And it wasn't like someone just walked in and pushed the branches out of the way and walked in. It was like just went in. Like just kind of floated in or something.
Yeah,
Weird.
that is spooky. I don't
Yeah.
know about that.
Yeah.
And you handled it so well because I remember when you told me, you're like, yeah, just saw like a guy just disappear into the trees. I was like, you saw what?
Well, I guess you try not to show that you're afraid because then
Yeah.
you wouldn't be open to anything, you know, but I mean, look at all the stuff that happened to your mom at work.
Yeah, I don't know how
I said,
she...
Heather, you've been there so many years, nothing's going to hurt you. I said, you know.
Yeah, she is
So-
like so brave and so tough
I
to...
said, just ask. I said, just say, is there anybody there that wants to speak? Or who is it? Like, you know,
Yeah,
what do you want? You know.
yeah,
Either that or you say, you know, if you're nice, you can stay. If you're not, get out.
yeah,
You know.
yeah.
But, yeah, and Janine, my friend Janine, had an experience one time, too. And she never told me, but she told her mother. And she told me later.
Mm-hmm.
She was laying in bed, and when she opened her eyes, there was like a white mist over her face. And she panicked, right? And it just went out the window. Same thing like happened to my mom, right? And she called her mother. She was all upset. And she's very quiet and very, she's strong Catholic, like, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And her mother said, well, it's God's way of saying everything's going to be okay. You know.
Wow. Yeah, the fact, and especially too, to be caught off guard like that when you wake up. I think that would be kind of
Yeah,
startling.
that, I don't know if I'd be prepared for that, but, I mean, you know, I know it happened to Mom.
Yeah.
It's funny, Pam was just mentioning that the other day.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is so interesting to
So
think
there's
like...
a lot of stories Darlene could tell you, because I can't remember them all, but there were so many of them when they were down at the other house. And, well, the rocking chair. Do you remember the story I told you about that?
I think you've mentioned that one to me before.
Yeah, it was, there was me, and it was either one of my brothers. We were sitting there reading comics. That's what we did back then. And we were in the living room. Everybody was out. There was just us sitting in the living room. And same thing, that little room again. There was a platform rocker in there, one of those heavy cloth-covered, big, heavy things.
Mm-hmm.
And we heard it rocking, and I get up to go look, because I thought maybe someone's home, right?
Mm-hmm.
Nobody was in the chair. The chair was rocking. We flew out that front door so fast, we sat out in the street till someone came home.
Oh, my
gosh. Back in there again. And that was that same room that Gary was talking to somebody.
Sounds like it's somebody, like, drawn or attracted to that rocking chair.
That room, too.
Yeah, that whole room makes you wonder.
Yeah. You know.
That's really interesting.
So, there was a lot of, I mean, that house was over 100 years old, so you just don't know, right?
Well, that's why, like, I know some of the houses in St. John, like some of those older heritage houses, I mean, you have to wonder, like, there's probably so many people over the years have lived there, like, their different experiences they
died
had.
there.
Like, yeah,
my
exactly.
My grandfather, in that house that was in town, my grandfather was born in that house. They didn't go to the hospital way back. He was born in that house. And that's my father's father, your great-great-grandfather. And then my father, he lived in that house all his life. So when his father died, his sisters and brothers got together and they said, no, you keep the house because we have homes and, you know, you have kids to raise and you looked after our father, so, you know, we leave the house to you.
Mm-hmm.
So we grew up there. And, you know, so there is a lot of history in the family with that house.
Mm.
People have died there, and, you know.
Did that house get torn down, Nanny? That house?
Did that house burn down?
Yeah, is that house still there?
No, it was a big brick building.
Okay.
And there was two flats in the middle, two flats upstairs. And then Dad converted downstairs into... He must be watching something, so I'll be up at whatever. And then the big flat downstairs was all made into one. What happened was the city wanted to buy the land to build the playground and everything on that they were putting on there. They were buying up a bit of the land. So they didn't want the house. They tore the house down. Because I remember I made cookies, molasses cookies, and I sat in the car with Dad to watch them tear it down because I lived up on St. James Street at the time.
Wow.
Yeah.
Jay.
Yeah, I remember them tearing it down. And so that's when they bought the house out where Darlene's living now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and they had some experiences there too, eh?
What's that, dear?
They had like some different like experiences with ghosts and stuff there too.
Many. That's where Mom heard the footsteps, the door shutting, the footsteps coming up the stairs, and Dad heard the door shut downstairs, and yeah.
Man.
It was strange.
Yeah, that's the thing, right? You don't
probably
know.
Lots more. Darlene could remember them more than me because she lived there, so, you know.
Okay. I'm going to connect with Aunt Darlene.
Send her a message and tell her you want to talk to her about ghost stories. She's got things that have happened.
Okay.
Like she's got a sense, you know, like a sense about things sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
Like when she, she was coming across the causeway one time, and I can't remember that story completely, but it was something about she just had a sick feeling in her stomach that something was going to happen to somebody or something. And remember the whole story, so she'll have to tell it, but, you know.
Wow. That's pretty amazing, like, to have that sense. Like, that's kind of a gift in a way.
Yeah, it runs on Dad's side of the family, so a couple of the others had it too.
Jay. Yeah, very interesting, Nanny. Thank you for sharing all the stories with me. That's awesome.
I probably talked your ear off, but,
no!
You know, if I can remember any more, I'll let you know, but...
That would be awesome.
You know, I'll tell Darlene you're going to be contacting her.
Yes, definitely do that. I'll have to send her a message and let her know that we'll have a call one of these days.
Yeah, find out which time is best for her.
Okay.
Yeah.
That sounds good to me, Nanny. Thank you.
All right. No problem.
Thank you guys so much for tuning in to today's episode. Really hope that you enjoyed everything. And if you have any of your own ghost stories that you might like to have featured in a future episode, please feel free to send them on over to ghoststorycafe@gmail.com.